It's interesting. One thing I love that you encourage in TPN is just taking like messy, imperfect action. Just hearing you say that over and over and over has just really given me a lot of, I don't know if peace is the right word, but just being comfortable with just taking action rather than needing to have everything perfect. And yeah, I signed 3 clients in one day. And I think in April I did 6 or 7,000. But I didn't know like it could be so easy. And it almost felt criminal. It almost felt wrong. So it was just, I don't know, it was just mind blowing. And I wish that I could go back and tell the Becca of like 5 years to just get started and just get out there. And one thing I love that you encourage is just have conversations.
Welcome back to the Profitable Nutritionist Podcast, my friend. I cannot wait for you to meet the guest that I am going to introduce you to today. Her name is Becca Thomas. She is a nurse turned nutritional therapy practitioner, and she is the founder of Faithful Fertility. She is a fertility nutritionist, and she has a lot to tell you in this episode about how she has drastically increased the amount of clients that she works with and the amount of money that she is making in her practice, which is not a new practice, by the way. She actually got into this in 2015. We have very similar stories in that way. And she recorded this episode in her RV because she and her family are full-time RV travelers. Again, another thing that we had in common. You're going to love to hear her work schedule, how she balances homeschooling her kids and her practice, and it's growing. And she's on track to 6x her revenue this year. And she got called out for marketing to a fertility support group and had an entire situation around that, which she's going to tell you all about. And the reason I am teeing that up is because we have a great conversation in store about keeping going, even when you have some setbacks in your business, which Becca has had. She has come out on the other side of that with huge opportunities that she never could have even anticipated. And you're going to love to hear how she did that as well. She gets very, very tactical on the exact kind of marketing that she uses, what she sent out to her friends and family to increase her referrals and the amount of leads that are coming in, which has worked amazingly. And we talked about her social media strategy, which I love. And that might really surprise you, which I'm going to leave you in suspense about because she's going to tell you all about it. So take it away, Becca. Becca Thomas, welcome to the Profitable Nutritionist Podcast. I have been so excited for us to record this today. I have no idea what we're going to talk about, but it's going to be amazing because you have a great story and you have so much to share, which we're going to get into. But first, give us a little intro on how did you get to where you are? Who do you help? Like give your background a little bit so we have some context.
Yeah, my background actually started when I was very young. So I was homeschooled. I'm one of those awkward homeschooled children, in case you haven't met one in real life. But my mom was actually very naturally minded, and this would have been in like the late 90s, mid to late 90s. And I just remember her reading this book about natural health when I was probably like 12 years old, and me and my siblings teased her so much about it. And she just was one that avoided doctors, avoided pharmaceuticals. And even though like I didn't have real strong opinions on it, when I went off to school, I came back, I got married, and then I started nursing school. And while I was in nursing school, I actually worked for a chiropractor who taught me a ton about natural health, which was amazing. And it was just really interesting because he actually taught me a lot about vaccines, which I did not know a ton about going into school. And the more I learned, the more I realized how skewed our healthcare system was actually towards sick care. And it was interesting to me too throughout nursing school, just seeing how things were taught and how things were handled. And I just remember so clearly my first semester of nursing school, you take a class called pharmacology, where you learn about all the different classes of drugs. You have to memorize them, and the class is very hard, and a lot of people don't pass it. But I don't remember once in that class talking about vaccines, even though this was a product that we gave to every single person. And when we finally did talk about them, it was in third semester, and I kind of pushed the teacher a little bit more about them. And because in pharmacology we're taught you always have to assess whether the benefits of giving this medication outweigh the risks, because there are always risks, right? And so I raised my hand. I was like, how do we know that the benefit of giving this outweighs the risk? And she just like stuck her finger right in my face, and she's like, the benefits always outweigh the risks, like end of discussion. Um, And then funny enough, I got pregnant right before I graduated, and I took my boards, I had a baby, and I started a new job all within like 3 months.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
So it was really interesting though with my first child. I didn't know anything about natural health. And I think sometimes, Andrea, you can probably relate to this. When people look at us as practitioners, they just have this preconception that it comes very naturally and that we always have been eating well. But when we first got married, we ate like chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, not just mac and cheese, but like Easy Mac that comes in the plastic container. We had that almost every night for dinner
Yeah.
because we both worked full time and was busy. And like, I didn't know much about cooking in spite of being homeschooled.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh, I'm so relating to this. My first daughter was, I mean, probably mostly formed on not not Lucky Charms, but the generic version of them, Marshmallow Mateys, was like my
yes,
pregnancy craving. There were so many Marshmallow Mateys that I ate when I was pregnant with her. Again, didn't know what I didn't know.
yeah, and that was me. I would get like a giant bag of animal crackers, and that's what I would just eat while I was studying. And of course, I was studying because was finishing up nursing school and I was pregnant. But long story short, like I knew nothing about real food. I actually didn't even know you could buy a whole chicken in the store. And it was funny because I was recalling this with my husband a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, "Do you remember that night where you got home from work and you're like, can we please have something else for dinner?" Because that's literally I just didn't know my way around the kitchen. So people, if you're just starting your health journey, like I just want to encourage you that we all start somewhere, and usually us practitioners started at the same square one as you are.
Totally. Yeah, totally, totally.
So we had our firstborn, and she had eczema probably from about 3 months on, and I didn't really know what caused that. But one thing that got me through nursing school was asking why. Like, why is this happening? Well, why did that happen? And why did that happen? And coming back to this process of, the very beginning of the really it was root cause, but I didn't know it. I didn't know that term back then. But she had eczema, and then at 11 months, she had a severe reaction to chickpeas. Actually, it turned out she had food allergies. But throughout all this, I was working in a hospital, I was working in the dialysis unit, and I had particularly picked our practitioner that we were working with, and our practitioner was like, there's some research coming out, and my oldest just turned 15, but back then probiotics were a very, very new thing, and she told me there's some research coming out that acidophilus can help with eczema, and it really piqued my interest. And so I asked the doctor I was working with, who of course was a nephrologist, and I said, what do you think about this? And he literally laughed at me, and he's like, the gut has nothing to do with the skin.
Nothing.
And
Nothing at
having
all.
Yes, having just been through nursing school, I knew, and pharmacology, I knew what steroid cream was. I knew what the risks of that were. So I'm like, well, I'm not slathering that all over my 6-month old. So we used probiotics, and it helped some. And then I actually took her to a nutritionist, which helped even more. And then she had the food allergy diagnosis, and her allergies were eggs, peanuts, chickpeas, almonds, and dairy. And I was like, I don't even know what to feed this child. So one of my patients actually in the dialysis unit then introduced me to the Weston A. Price Foundation, which kind of was my foray into natural health. And then the
What's a
interesting
call back to your mom all those years ago? You're like, wait a second, she knew something.
she did know something. She just didn't know what she knew yet. And she said, it was mother's intuition from God, which I totally believe,
Yeah.
but she knew back then. And so I started looking into the Weston A. Price Foundation. And interestingly enough, then I think that was probably in September or October of that year. And then,
Where would this
it,
have been? This is when she was young. So like we're thinking 2010, 11,
yes,
something
it
like
was
that. Okay.
2010. Yep,
Yeah.
it was 2010. Actually, this was 2011. It was the following year, because it was a year after she was born. But interestingly enough, in the healthcare field, they really start to push the flu vaccine around. It's earlier and earlier every year. Back then, it was around October, and I didn't want to get it. And so I requested an exemption, and I actually was denied, and I got fired in January of 2012 for refusing a flu shot. So I saw the whole 2020 debacle coming a long way off. The cool thing was I did file a complaint with the EEOC, and I actually won my complaint against the hospital. for wrongful termination. But all that to say, like, once I got fired, I was like, this is not like, I want to help people and I want to be in health, but this is not it. And that was January of 2012. And I started voraciously reading everything I could through Weston A. Price. And of course, back then, the paleo movement was just emerging and there was a ton of new information and things like that. So I really started learning my way around the kitchen, learning how to cook. And then in 2015, I'm like, I want to make this official. And I went back and got my certification through the NTA. So
Amazing.
I started working kind of sort of, we'll get into the business side a bit more, but I started working as more on the nutrition side of things. And then in 2020 I had a friend who was struggling with secondary infertility, and she's like, I know you help people when they're pregnant, but do you think you could help me get pregnant? And I'm like, I don't know, let's find out. So in 2020, that was my first fertility client. She was also struggling with anxiety, and she within 4 months was pregnant and her anxiety was like 90% better. So I'm like, if I really want to impact generations to come, like, this is it, like starting before people even get pregnant.
Okay, so that's 2020.
Yes.
Then what happens? And bring us up to speed on what your practice looks like now and who you help, and then we're gonna dive in some more.
Yeah. So, kind of a shout out to you, but I didn't know when I was working back then, but I definitely had a jobby. In 2020, I started homeschooling myself because of the landscape of schooling. We
So
didn't feel
prior to that, your kids were in public school.
they were in a small Lutheran school.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
We had talked about homeschooling, but my husband travels for work. He was gone like 70 to 80% of the time. And he's like, Becca, you probably literally will kill these children if you're with them that much. So they were in a small private school. And we still didn't like the reopening plan or whatever. So I started homeschooling. And just we're like, we'll just do it this year and see how it goes. And it was kind of the breath of fresh air I didn't know our family needed, but also my kids at the time would have been like 10, 7, and 4.
Yep.
So obviously, with my husband gone all the time, I just did not have much time to put into my business at all. And I had clients here and there, but it definitely was a jobby. And and I love how you compare in your emails Debbie and Courtney, because that was so me. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I wish somebody would have told me this in 2020, that getting like the perfect marketing materials is not going to bring me clients. um but in fairness, like, I do think that there are seasons for everything,
Yep.
and I don't think that was my season to be focused on business. And then in 2022, I got the crazy idea that we should move into a camper and explore
Who
the
would
country.
ever do that? I mean, insanity. I say for anybody that doesn't know this, we did the exact same thing. It was great. And if you're listening to the audio of this, you can't see it, but Becca's in a RV right now. And before we started filming, I was like, okay, let me see in there. Like, what setup do you have? What's your bunk situation? We were talking the whole thing. RV life is the best. Tell us everything. Go.
Yeah, it's difficult sometimes, as you know, but it was kind of funny. In 2022, we had bought a camper in 2021, but in 2022, I told my husband, I'm like, people live on the road like this, and we were already homeschooling, so I'm like, we could do this. And at the time, he was managing his department at work at the Department of Service Technicians, and he was still traveling a lot. And he told me I was crazy. He's like, I don't think we could ever do that. And I'm like, I mean, I'm just saying, what if?
Yeah.
And
This sounds very familiar to my exact conversations. Yep.
yeah, so he ended up within a year, like, we just kind of prayed about it, and God opened like door after door after door after door, like every single thing down the line. And the following year in February, we bought a fifth wheel, and then we sold our house in July, and we took off in September, like right after Labor Day, before it got
Okay.
cold.
So that would have been 2023.
This was 2023. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Where is home for you, by the way?
Wisconsin.
Okay. Amazing. Us good Midwestern girls. We got to stick
Yes.
together.
Yes.
Okay. So 2023 fall, you hit the road. Then what happens?
Yeah. So in 2023, we have flipped 4 houses. I know we have a lot going on, but we have flipped 4 houses. So when you decide to sell a house, like, the joke in our family is once the trim goes on the wall, the for sale sign is coming soon.
Yes.
So when we decided in April that we were going to sell the house, because originally we were just going to rent it out, but we got an opportunity to buy a smaller house somewhere else. And so we sold our big house. And from like April to July when we sold and then got out of the house at the beginning of August, of course, it's like crazy time. So my last client had gotten pregnant right around March or April that I was working
So
with.
you're fully working with fertility clients by this point.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I was. I was. And my last client had just gotten pregnant. So I was like, okay, and I was only working with like maybe one or two clients at a time. It was not very much, but I'm like, okay, here is a good time to take a break. And I wasn't sure that I would like reamp up and start with clients again. But my husband had quit his job, which
Why
I
not add
mean,
that to the mix, really?
we really are crazy. He went out on his own, and I mean, he had plenty of work. He was subcontracting for the company that he used to work for. He had plenty of work, but every time he worked, he would have to go away for the week. And so by like October or November of 2023, I talked to him and I was like, I really do think I can make something of this nutrition business. I just need like focus time. And he agreed to homeschool 2 days a week for me so that I could finally like have good focus time on my business rather than it just being a jobby.
Mhm.
Um, but I still felt like, I don't know. I don't know like if lacking direction is the right term or just feeling lost because there's so many voices on the in the online marketing space that are like do Facebook ads, don't do Facebook ads, do Pinterest, do YouTube, do podcasting. And I'm like, somebody just like tell me the right path to take.
Yeah.
And it was a slow start getting up and going again. Of course, I felt like I needed to update all my materials and do a new website and, all the little things. I like things very aesthetic, but I started listening to your podcast then. I think it was in fall of 2024 or summer of 2024. And I just loved how you were like, it's going to be messy. There is no right, like one right path for everybody. Whatever you choose to do, it will work for you. And it was just like permission to experiment and to be okay with experimenting and pivoting and changing and things like that. Where before I just felt, even though I wouldn't say I was a perfectionist, I have this tendency, I'm a procrastinator, and I realized that I was a procrastinator because I wanted like this perfectly laid out path of what my onboarding would look like, what my program would look like, what my clients would look like before I even started. But you really can't have all that until you dive in and like you can't steer a parked car. And I was like trying very hard to steer a parked car.
So good. It is so true though, and it's always going to feel messy. Like this has just been my experience as an entrepreneur for now well over 20 years. It just feels it just does. It just still feels messy. It still feels like, "Ooh, there's these things that just aren't right." I can see like where I want this to go in the future and I can see like this better version of it and this more cleaned up, streamlined version of it. Always we will always feel that way. And it's just it's just the fact. Like, it'll just feel
Well,
that way.
and in fairness, I think that there are so many big entrepreneurs out there like Jenna Kutcher and Amy Porterfield that have like these big, beautiful aesthetic brands and they have all the automations and everything. And for some reason, starting out, we're like, oh, like I need to build that. And like
Yeah,
I
it's
need to
gonna
have
look
like
like that. That's
perfectly
what I need to
polished
do.
course videos and like all this stuff. And it's just not like that.
Mhm, mhm. It's funny that you say that. Amy Porterfield came and spoke to a small group that I was in a couple years ago, and she was super candid about her business and the behind the scenes of it. There were only like maybe 25 of us in the room, and she was like, the entire talk was about what is messy. So
Mm.
it's really funny that you bring her up specifically because she did an entire like, yeah, I know it looks really polished, but here's all the messy stuff. Here's the stuff that we're fixing right now. Here's the stuff I hate about it. And I just think that's such a great reminder. Like every stage of business, we're going to feel like that. Because if you're growing, you're at a new level where like you haven't done it before. You haven't been there before because like that's part of the journey. Is we
Well,
do
and
new things.
speaking of Amy Porterfield, I saw her at a business conference in either 2016 or 2017, and she was talking about Facebook ads because that's where she started.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's funny to see how even these big entrepreneurs, even the things that they're known for, aren't where they started out.
It changes, it evolves as we do as humans and the business owner. Okay, so you like fully taking fertility clients, take a break, then you go back in. maybe it wasn't a break, but for a few, it sounds like for a few months at least, you're getting acclimated to life on the road.
Mhm.
Then you're like, no, I'm still feeling this. You go in harder with a couple focus days a week. And then what happened?
Yeah, it felt like it was slow at first. And I honestly reached out to friends, even though like I wanted to focus on fertility. Of course, as we all know, a big part of fertility, especially for women, is balancing hormones. And I'm at the age where a lot of my friends are starting to hit perimenopause. Lovely. So I was like, I will take women, any women, whether it was hormone balance or fertility, things like that. So my clientele now, I would say is probably about 70-30, where 70% is fertility. And when I say fertility, I am of the mindset that it takes two to tango. So I work with both the men and the women in that client setup. And then I work with women in balancing hormones. And then I also will work with their husband or their children once they have worked with me, because and this is another funny business story, and one that I was like, I really need to raise my prices. But I had a friend who had a child that was struggling, and I referred him out because it was a teenage boy, and I thought he would be better working with another practitioner. And I referred them out, and he went to a very well known person in our realm of influence.
Mhm.
And 9 months later, his mom called me and she's like, Becca, will you please just work with us? Like, we've been working with this other practitioner for 9 months. We've been on a $300 a month supplement protocol. And she's like, he's made like little to no progress. Will you please just do the testing and take a peek? And so I did. And it was just such a lesson. Like, I didn't ask, but she told me what this person charged. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't even charge that for working for two people. Like, but it was just such an eye-opening experience that somebody is probably not going to take better care of your clients than you are, even if you feel like that person is out of your realm. And I've now been working with this child for, it's coming up on a year now, and he's like a completely different person. So just, and part of it was like insecurity. Even though I have the nursing background, I still get insecure sometimes because I don't particularly do blood work and labs and things like that. There is some testing that I do, but I'm like, I'm not confident in that. So, but I still know, like, I know what I'm doing and I know I've helped people, but there's still just that insecurity
Yeah.
that comes rearing its head no matter what level you're at.
And again, again, just normalizing that. I don't think that there's a world where that doesn't happen. Like I just think that we're humans and it's okay. And sometimes you'll feel that and you can work through it and you have tools to work through it and you just keep going anyway. It's
Well,
just
and
not a reason to stop.
I would argue too that it's interesting comparing the two worlds of like alternative health and the healthcare field, that there are good practitioners and there are bad practitioners, and some of the practitioners who are like the most book smart and know the most, they don't have the best like follow through or programs or like caring or things like that. And just knowing that where your skill set is and where your strengths are, and mine are like caring and loving on people and really being there for them and guiding them, and being willing to go above and beyond. And I love my friends like that, but I love my clients like that too. And if you know you're going to take good care of a client and you know that you can at least help get that client a little bit further, then I would go ahead and work with them. And yes, like there is a point where I know I've reached my max with a client and I'm like, okay, I've gotten you as far as I can. Here's another practitioner that I think would be good to dive in deeper to these symptoms that you're still struggling with. And that's okay too. I mean, doctors make referrals all the time, just like that. And for some reason, as practitioners, we think we need to know everything about everything in order to just step in and help somebody.
That's such a good point. It's such a good point. Like it's referring is normal. It should be normal. And it doesn't have to be. Like we could argue both sides of that. Like it shouldn't be your default. It doesn't have to be your default, but it's also completely acceptable and helpful as well. Okay, so I want to pull on this thread a little bit more because I remember us coaching on this earlier this spring when you did have a lot of hormone balancing clients coming in and you're like, this isn't my niche. Like these people that are coming to me are not fertility clients. I specifically am marketing to fertility clients, but I'm getting a lot of hormone balancing people. Like this isn't working. And we coached on that and we were like, but I mean, like if the goal is to make money and help people, it is working. So let's talk about that a little bit and maybe your thought change there.
Yeah, I mean, kind of reflecting over the last year and being like, I mean, I can help those people. I just really want to work in fertility, and my business is called Faithful Fertility, so I know like that's who I'm marketing to. But again, like a lot of my friends, either them or they had friends that were like, I could use your help. And so just being willing to take what comes your way. And it's not that I didn't want to take those people. I just was really, I don't know, I guess frustrated for lack of a better word. Cause I'm like, I'm literally like fertility. I say fertility. I'm sending out fertility marketing materials. I'm talking about fertility. And people are like, can you help me sleep better? I'm like, yeah, I can. But just being willing to take what you can get in the beginning. And, for me, making that pivot into fertility was something that just kind of fell in my lap more or less. So I know a lot of people before that, in that time before I was like fertility, I was doing anything, and I still can work with anybody and do anything to an extent, but just being willing to take what comes your way and get your feet wet.
Yeah, I think because also we don't know how many of those clients are going to refer you as a fertility expert to people that they know in their life when they get great results too. And it's not always a problem that, I mean, I don't think it's ever a problem when clients are coming to you and obviously your marketing's working in some way there. So it's like, okay, great. Something's working, something's landing. And could we be open to the idea that this actually is the doorway to walk through to more fertility clients? It's just like a windy hallway instead of the straight one that we think that it's going to be. And I think that you and I are similar in this way. I'm sure that you pray about your business a lot. I pray about mine, and I'm like, okay, just like let me be open to whatever it is that you have for me,
Mhm.
and not try to hyper manage the how. And that seems to work pretty well. But that's probably a good instance of that. Like, okay, so these hormone balancing clients aren't exactly what I thought I was going to have flooding in the door right now, but I can help them. And I am. So you have been. And then what has happened?
Yeah, so it's interesting. One thing I love that you encourage in TPN is just taking like messy imperfect action, and just hearing you say that over and over and over has just really given me a lot of, I don't know if peace is the right word, but just being comfortable with just taking action rather than needing to have everything perfect, and working on marketing materials or handouts or the website until the copy is just right, because it's never going to be that way. And so one thing I did right before I joined TPN, and I continue to do, is I started reaching out to infertility support groups, just finding them online, and specifically faith-based. I don't know if I mentioned that, but my program it's a faith-based program for Christian couples, because I feel like there are so many ethical and moral issues surrounding IVF in particular. And a lot of Christian couples, either they don't want to go that route for that reason, or of course, it's a very expensive procedure that doesn't have a great success rate, quite honestly. So, but as you know, Andrea, since we're talking about faith, whenever you go through something difficult, it can either point you to God and your faith can grow deeper, or it can really separate you and like make you question God and your why, and why you, and things like that. And I really wanted to do something different. So my fertility program isn't just diet and lifestyle. We actually talk about marriage and faith in there extensively, because infertility is very hard on marriage and on faith. And so if I can help a couple to grow through that experience, rather than like the divorce rate is much higher in couples that experience infertility. And so if I can, to me, this is like kingdom work, not just a job. But what happened was I started emailing faith-based fertility groups, and I told the story in the last coaching call, but it was interesting because I'm coming from of a place of like, I really genuinely want to help you. Of course, I need to make money, but I want to help you. And there was one lady who emailed me back, and she was like, how dare you try to siphon customers who are in a support group and blah, blah, blah. And just kind of went off on me.
And
And
so
like,
that would be like the admin of this group, right? This is the person in charge of the group that you had
the
reached out to
this was
support
just
them.
a leader, because I
Okay.
was reaching out to like small local groups that I could find.
Okay.
And I would just look for like infertility support groups at like churches or in cities, things like that, that would indicate that I was looking for just small local support groups.
Okay.
And yes, it was a leader of one of those support groups. And she was like, I went through blah, blah, blah to have my children and this and that. I mean, she just kind of went off on me. And I know like she didn't understand my heart, and that's on her and everything. But then again, same message, because I was sending out pretty much a templated email.
Mhm.
Um, but there was another lady who responded, and she was like, I love what you're doing, because couples do need support and they need faith backing, and like there is so much you can do for diet and lifestyle. And what I ended up doing was, at the end of December, she hosts an event where they have couples struggling with infertility. It's really just to bless them. So she has a bunch of donations. The event, I think couples pay a small fee for, or whatever. Anyways, I sponsored that event for her for like, I mean, it wasn't much. It was like 50 or $100, not much. But she's like, I would really love to connect after this event. And so I think it was in February or March, I reached out again and I was like, hey, I would love to do a virtual coffee chat and get to know you a little bit better and see if I can support you in what you're doing or anything like that. And so we got on the phone, I think it was probably in March. I think it was March. And she is super sweet. She's about my age, a little bit older, but just told me her story. And she's like, I love what you're doing. How about I introduce you? How about we do a Facebook Live? I just want to introduce you to my group. And I was like, that's fine. And so she sent me the link to StreamYard, which is a streaming platform. So I don't see anything. We just kind of do this Facebook Live. And she tells me afterwards, she's like, well, this is going to be on the main Facebook page. It has like 106,000 people on it. I'm like, I'm sorry, how many? And so
But
she
God is
has,
so good, because had you known that beforehand, you might have been a little freaked out, and you didn't know. You didn't know. It was good.
maybe,
Yeah.
but I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And like, the no, like, and trust, it takes a few months. But she was like, after we got off, she's like, Becca, that went so well. How would you feel about doing this monthly with me? I was like, I would feel great about that. So she has an online support group of 106,000. It's a faith-based support group. It is growing every day. Very active community, very sweet. And so we have done probably 3 or 4 Facebook Lives now. And actually, she has been so great, because I'm like, hey, I do the HTMA with all of my clients as a first step. And so, as a thank you, I'm like, hey, how about you just let me do this test for you and just take a peek and see where things are at for you, because she's still wanting to get pregnant. And
Mhm.
she's like, yes. She's like, let's do that and let's go over my results live on Facebook. And I'm like, okay, I mean, if
Let's
that's what
do
you want
that.
to do.
Sounds great.
So we talked about lab tests last month, and then I got her HTMA, and actually, in I think 2 weeks, we're going over her test results live. So she's like, I want people to know what it's like to work with you. I want people to see, what this experience looks like, so that they can decide if it's a good fit for them or not. So, usually I get probably like 2 or 3 consults at least out of after each live. And then so far I've gotten two clients, and actually three, and another possibility. So
Amazing.
yeah.
So very fruitful for you, and will continue to be. But I loved when you shared this, because Becca like very generously shared this in the TPN group, and then we were on a coaching call, and I saw that she was there, and I was like, hey, can you come on and talk a little bit more about that experience that you had with these groups, because it's such an important highlight of like the word. I think what we think the worst thing that could happen when we're marketing our business is somebody misunderstands our intentions and they call us out. Nobody wants to be rejected. Nobody wants to be made like to feel like they were trying to take advantage of anybody else or greedy or whatever. Like we all have these worst case scenarios in our mind, and then it happened to you, and you didn't take it personally. I'm sure it was not a fun experience, but you kept doing what you were doing. And then on the back of that, you have this huge opportunity that comes from somebody else. Like we never know. And I just was like, oh my gosh, we have to talk about that, because the not quitting when negative emotions come up and when situations come up that aren't ideal, like that probably will happen. It just probably will. And it's okay. And you're not going to die, and you can still help people and still keep going. And like, what if there's even a better opportunity on the other side? So that I just was like, Becca, we have to talk about it. We have to just break this down and share it as a little reminder.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, and I said it on the call, was like you could be the most amazing hot fudge sundae, and there are going to be people that don't like hot fudge sundaes or hate hot fudge sundaes.
Yeah.
But ultimately, as a believer, like I know my heart and God knows my heart, and you know your heart and God knows your heart. And ultimately, those people are accountable for how they respond. And I can't imagine going off on somebody like that, because she was pretty rude about it. And then I said, I'm sorry. I really just wanted to help people, and I'm sorry what you went through. I'm really just helping people try to avoid that. And she fired back, and she was like, I'm glad of what I went through because it made my face stronger and blah blah blah. And I'm just like, okay, have a nice day. Like, I mean, what do you say to that? So it just people are going to perceive you wrong, even if you're not wrong, even if your heart isn't in the wrong place. And that's between them and God. But ultimately, you have to be firm in what your calling is and expect that God is going to open the right doors for you. And there's examples of this in the Bible, where Joseph's brothers threw him in the pit, and then he was, when he interpreted dreams, he was thrown in prison, even though like he was literally talking to God, he was doing the right thing. But people still took it the wrong way, and it's going to happen to you. That's just life.
Yeah. It is. It is. And also, we have the gifts that we have, and we have the skills that we have, and we're here listening to this podcast right now. We're watching this video for a reason, and like lean into that too. Because yeah, people will misinterpret. That'll happen.
Yeah, and I would just encourage you and maybe challenge you, if you are a believer. I always find it interesting that the story in the New Testament about the talents, and back then a talent was a piece of money, but what if talents are what God has given you to bless other people with? And rather than being brave enough to step out and do that, like you're squandering it, like the foolish person who buried their talents. And
Mhm.
it's just interesting that talent is the same word then for money as it is now for having a gifting in something. And if you have a gifting, if God has given you a gifting, whether you're charging for it or not, he expects you to use it for the kingdom and for his glory.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. Okay. So you have this experience with the group. Your business has been growing. Take us through the last, I mean, what has it been? Like 3, 4 months. If memory serves, you joined the TPN program in March. I know that in April we touched on the fact you're like, I hardly worked in April and I just had my best month ever, and you were freaking out a little bit about that. So maybe we should touch on that and kind of like what your work week looks like as somebody that's traveling full time in an RV,
Yeah.
homeschooling their kids.
Yeah.
Alternative lifestyle all the way. I know we're going to get all the questions. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So last year in 2024, it was one of those years where obviously it wasn't just like we traveled and I worked on my business. I was telling Andrea before we started, we actually had some major frame issues with our first camper. So we got off the road in May. And then, surprise, surprise, we remodeled another house that we had bought. So it was kind of like a busy year. We ended up being stationary in that house for almost a full year. And during that time, yes, I was working on my business, kind of sort of muddling my way through, not really. I guess maybe insecurity is probably the best way to put it, where I just felt insecure about the path I was taking. And I found Andrea's podcast in like summer or fall of 2024, because I remember I would take my dog for a walk in the morning and listen to Andrea's podcast. And I just loved everything Andrea had to say. I love that she built her business off of social media, because I'm not a huge fan of social media. In spite of course, Andrea, all your friends and family are like, you should share on Instagram. You should
Yes.
share
Yeah,
on
you should have a
Instagram.
you should have a vlog. You should do this. You should be
Yeah.
doing yeah. It's like, oh my goodness, it feels
Yeah.
like
And it
that.
was just one of those things where I I was working, but I didn't really have a clear defined path or goal. And so I was making some progress, but I think in 2024, of course, it was a break year, but I think in all of 2024, I did like 10,000. And then I joined TPN. Actually, it was at the very end of February, because I did it as a birthday gift to myself. And I'm like, this is a year, like, I'm going to make this work or just be done at the end of the year. So I started doing that. And I had started doing some things before I joined TPN, but when I joined TPN, it was just like permission to just do more and more of those messy things. So I typically, during the school year, I typically teach my kids from about 8 to 10 a.m. every day. And then I work one evening a week and then 1 to 2 afternoons a week. And not all of that is client facing either. I set my program up to be very hands off because that's how I want my business and my lifestyle to look. And I typically work 10 to 15 hours a week right now. And I in 2024, I think I did 10,000 for the whole year last year. And then I looked from February, late February, so I guess the beginning of March until now, from when I joined TPN until now, I've done 30 or 35 this year or during that time
Amazing.
period. So, and like I said, I probably could do more as far as working more, but I don't want to.
It's the lifestyle that you want. This is incredible. Okay, so that's pretty huge. 10 to 15 hours a week. Let's do the math on that. So March, April, May, June, July. Okay, so 5 months. I mean, that's like 6K a month average.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That is a real nice business. Okay, so how? Well, I have questions, but first, maybe you have more to say on that about April being your best month. I remember you saying like, I just signed 3 clients in one day, and I'm hardly working, and like, is this
Yes.
even allowed?
Yeah, it almost felt criminal. And honestly, like, I feel a little bit emotional about it because I wish I could go back to 2020 when I really wanted to get things going. And part of me is like, it's okay, Becca, and like, just give yourself grace. It just wasn't your season then, and it is now. And, there are different seasons to things, and there are seasons where we need to focus on our families or whatever. But what happened in April was we got back on the road after being off for a year. So we repacked up this house we had been living in for a year and completely prepped it. It's an Airbnb now. And then, yeah, we got back on the road mid-April, and it obviously any type of transition like that is just crazy. So I was doing the bare minimum of my client work, and then even though I don't like social media, I do post, or I was posting at the time on Facebook once a week, just posting client wins from that week. And yeah, I signed 3 clients in one day, and I think in April I did 6 or 7 that month. I don't remember right offhand. I didn't look specifically at that month.
Six or $7,000 or 6 or 7
Mhm.
clients?
6 or 7 thousand.
Okay.
But I didn't know like it could be so easy. And it almost felt criminal. It almost felt wrong because I was like, I barely did anything this month. Um, so it was just, I don't know, it was just mind blowing. And I wish that I could go back and tell the Becca of like 5 years to just get started and just get out there. And one thing I love that you encourage is just have conversations. And I carry postcards with me everywhere. I talk about it in TPN all the time, but I tell people to get postcards, not business cards, because postcards don't get lost and you can put more information on there. So I carry postcards everywhere. And when we're out on the road and I meet somebody who's about my age or who is in a church, I give them 2 or 3 postcards and I'm like, hey, here's what I do. If you know anybody I can help, I would love to help them. And I don't know, like I'm not aware of any clients I've gotten that way so far, but it's like the tipping point, the
Mhm.
more you do things, and you say this too, the more you're actually working, like those returns come even if it's not from like the thing you're doing, which is so weird to me. Like as long as you're doing something and actively working, like you see the return from that, and it doesn't have to be the return on the exact thing you're doing, which is so weird. So but yeah, it almost felt criminal signing 3 clients in one day after having worked, like I used to probably spend 20 hours a week just like tweaking things, or like I do some reach outs but not like I do now. But yeah, it felt really really great and really weird just being like
Yeah.
I barely worked last month and it was a great month. And yeah.
That is so amazing. I have so many thoughts right now. First of all, I was just praying this morning about this, about like simplicity in my business, simplicity in other people's businesses. And like that's the thing that is coming up for me that you're saying here is just like, oh my gosh, that really was very enlightening that it could be easy, it could be simple. And I think that you can like you sow those seeds
Hmm.
consistently and you don't know when like you will harvest it. It's a kind of a trite example, but you don't know when. You don't get to decide when. It just happens. But if you're continually doing it, things are growing, and it like could be 3 in one day. Who knows? But also, we want this plan. We want this plan of like, okay, here's how I'm going to get clients. I'm going to do this thing, and then they're going to go to this page on my website, and then they're going to sign up. They're going to fill out this form with this button, and they're going to get this automated email afterwards. And it's going to be the best email ever. And they're going to click this link at the bottom, and it's going to bring them to this page. And then they're going to book a call with me, and then they're going to immediately pay me, and then we're going to work together. And this is the plan. And like that's just the way it's going to go. And then 1 million things in there could change or be broken or whatever. And it doesn't go exactly that way. But the act of like doing anything, like not trying to steer the parked car, trying to move forward and execute that plan probably opens up 50 other doors that you don't even see that are happening. And then the magic happens and the clients come and people are interested, but they didn't come through that specific page and that specific form and that specific email. They talked to so-and-so who did this and like they came a different way, and that's okay, because just the act of like doing a plan is going to have you talking about your business and having conversations and feeling more comfortable about it. And the more that you have the conversations, the easier the words come and the less you stumble over it. And the more you realize, oh yeah, when I say it this way, people really respond to that. I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to talk about it more in this way. And you just keep doing it. And the seeds sprout. It just really does.
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing is it's going to happen with your clients too. Just this week, I like created a special package for a certain client because of her situation or whatever, and she actually is through the fertility support group, and she's worked with another practitioner. And like for me, onboarding is the most important thing because that is a client's first interaction and first impression of you. And something was not right in her portal, and it was my fault, and I could not figure out what was going on. And she like sent me an email, and she's like, I've got to be honest, I'm a little disappointed, and I'm a pretty patient person. So like even as much as you try to have a plan and you try to have things in place, and like I'm pretty tech savvy, but things still get missed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay. And as soon as I figured it out, she's like, it's there, I've got it, I'm good, everything looks good. So like things are still going to go wrong even once you start getting clients.
Yeah,
So
even once you start getting clients, even once you have the perfect plan, even when the perfect plan is working for a while, then something doesn't work, and we still have to give ourselves grace, and it's all going to be okay. Oh my gosh, such good reminders. Okay, so clients are coming in, you're working less. That's kind of a dream. That's kind of amazing. You're still doing the things, but I want to talk a little bit about posting on Facebook. Okay, because I have thoughts about this that are probably different than the thoughts that you might think that I have. And I think it's amazing that you're posting on Facebook and you're talking about your client wins. But could you give a little context around this? Is this a business page? Is this your personal page? Are these people that know you? Like, tell us a little bit about that strategy, because I know somebody listening to this is probably like, oh, I want to hear more about what exactly it is that she's posting.
yeah, I think the interesting thing is when you're working with clients, you always want to give them scenarios where they can see themselves working with you.
Mm-hmm.
So back in February, one of the things was I'm not a fan of social media. I hated like I've taken Instagram courses for a while. I tried to keep up with Instagram where you have the 5 pillars and the buckets and you talk about the things, and I was like I wanted to pull my hair out, honestly. And I didn't have time for that. Like I and as you know, social media has a very poor return for time invested. Your post is good for 24 to 72 hours if it even gets
If
seen at
even.
all by most of your
Yeah.
people. So for me, I had taken a break from Instagram, and I was on Facebook a little bit more, mostly because I was on Marketplace looking for things for the house. And I'm like, I'm just going to post once a week. And each of my clients, I have a lower package and a higher package. Okay, Andrea, don't get mad at me. But for my higher package, every week my clients get sent a form that is like, what went well this week, what didn't go well this week, how much effort did you put in, and what else do I ask? What can I pray about for you this week? Something like that. And so
I love
when
that.
when I see wins, I screenshot them, or like I have messaging and practice better. So I check in with each of my clients once a week because that's their accountability. That's me being there. I call myself their fertility bestie, but I want to be there for them. And so if they say something in that message, I will screenshot it And then I have an album called Client Wins right on my phone that then I upload to Canva. Of course, I blur out their names to give them privacy, but I will either make a nice graphic on Canva that says, like a testimonial graphic, or I will just share that screenshot and say, one of my clients texted me this week. Um, I've seen this before, blah, blah, blah. And the interesting thing about that, it was my personal Facebook page. I didn't do it on my business Facebook page. But the interesting thing is, I've probably gotten not just friends reaching out, but I've had several referrals lately of friends that I know have seen my stuff on Facebook, and I'm also top of mind. So, along with that, one thing I'm doing is taking those postcards, and I have, like you said, send out an email to friends. I actually send a package to my friends with a postcard. One side says hormone balancing because I'm thankful to get those clients, and the other side says fertility. And I include a little packet of electrolytes in there just kind of as a thank you. And I'm like, hey, I'm taking clients right now. So if you know of anybody who's struggling either with their hormones or fertility, I would be honored if you'd hand my card to them. And I've gotten 2 clients in the last 2 weeks from people who either I sent postcards to or have seen my stuff on Facebook, because it keeps it top of mind. Like, oh yeah, Becca does this. So
Yeah.
even though I don't love social media, it's one of those things where I'm not like, I don't feel like I'm on a hamster wheel of content creation. I just look over my forms on Mondays. I'm like, oh, here's a good testimonial. Take 10 minutes, make a post on
Mhm.
Facebook, or go into Canva and make a nice post and then upload it to Facebook. And like, that's it for the week.
Yeah. Okay, so people might be really surprised to hear me say that I love this so much because, and here's like my where this might be a little bit confusing. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I think that social media is such a huge waste of time for most business owners. I think that the return on investment on that time is usually small to nothing, and it's just a dark abyss of time wasted because you go on with the best of intention of posting some content and then you get sucked into the feed and hours go by with nothing to show for it. So I think it is a terrible use of time. And also, that strategy is usually people that are trying to grow a bigger audience. They're trying to reach strangers. They're trying to appease the algorithm. They're trying to, taking the Instagram courses, taking the Facebook courses, all of that, trying to game the system. I don't know if it's really gaming the system, but you know what I mean? Like, there's a strategy there that's like, I need to get more reach. I need to get more people. I need to get seen by people that don't already know me yet, that need to see me as an expert and follow me and continue to consume my content. And then they'll hire me someday. Like, fingers crossed. That strategy, I think, is a terrible, terrible use of time for most people, especially people that care about their health and that care about the amount of screen time that they have and the stress in their life. I just think for many, many reasons, I hate that so bad. What I love is making sure that your friends and family know what you do. Making sure that your friends and family and the people in your life that already love you and care about you and want to support you and see you as an expert in some way know how to share your expertise and your offer with people that they know in their life that you might not already know. So I think that posting to your personal Facebook page with client wins is a great way to do that, to stay top of mind with people in your life that already want to support you. And that is a very different strategy than trying to grow a massive audience and be an Instagram influencer. So, probably going to be surprising to some people to hear that if you followed me for any length of time and I say grow your business without social media. But organically and just business in for thousands of years, long before the internet, people, word of mouth, people need to know what you do. They need to know what problems you solve, and if you have a good product and people get good results, they want to share it and they want to talk about it. So if you need to leverage your personal Facebook page to do such things, great, more power to you. I love that you have found a way to do that really sustainably. Like, it's not taking you a lot of time, it's not taking a lot of effort, and it is so impactful, I'm sure, for people to see those wins. So I just love everything about that strategy, which might be kind of a surprise to some people.
Well, and I think 2 other things about social media. First of all, like, talk about vitriol. Like, if you don't want people coming for you, then don't be on social media, because they see a 30-second clip and assume that they know you, they know your intentions. And yeah,
And there's free
there's
reign to tell you all about it. Yeah.
yes, yes. And secondly, I think social media is dying in a lot of ways because people are craving true connection. And there's so much AI content now that there are some, I've seen articles lately about how social media is dying, and how, I think it's Gen Z is getting off of social media because it just is, it's such an echo chamber of like yuckiness. And that's not to say like I am on Instagram, like I just don't use it for my business, and I don't think that's a good time for me to spend time to market my business. But for pleasure, like if I want to be on Instagram for an hour, like yeah, I'll spend an hour on Instagram, but I'm certainly not going to be on a hamster wheel of content creation to try to market my business to people who are going to come after me. Like it just, to me, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Okay, I just was reminded of one other thing that I wanted to circle back with, because this is something that I've been saying for a long time, but I feel like I don't say it often enough. And I don't know if I say it publicly. I feel like this is something I probably coached on in TPN, but maybe I haven't said publicly. So let's talk about this. Um, for those of you that do lab testing, like Becca does HTMA analysis. So just, but HTMA, the A is analysis. So we don't say analysis at the end. That's saying like ATM machine. So I sound like a moron when I just said that. Anyway, so Becca does HTMA, and that is lab testing. A lot of you guys that are listening to this do lab testing. Show what that process is like. Like people don't know when you say I do, and I see people say this with best of intentions, like their website, they're like, I do functional nutrition lab testing. Like no human knows what that means. Nobody knows what that means. Show them. Don't tell them. Show them. Show them a breakdown. Show them a video. Show them screenshots. Send emails about it. Do whatever you got to do. Names can be blurred out, but show how you go through a test report of whatever kind of testing it is that you do, and say, this is what we're seeing for this person, and here's how we're going to address it. And here's why working with someone like me is really helpful, because we can see these patterns and we know blah, blah, blah. You guys know what to say about your thing, but show people like all the time, show them what that looks like, because they have no idea when you say, I do this amazing testing. We can't visualize that. We don't know what that actually means. And to your point earlier, Becca, and this is what made me think about it, when you said people want to see themselves in it, people want to see like, what would it be like if I got this result, which is why sharing testimonials and sharing client wins is so impactful. Same thing with lab results. It's like, now imagine if we were looking at your blood work right now. Imagine if we were looking at your hair sample right now. What would that show us? We would know exactly what you need to eat. We would know exactly blah, 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 blah. So show people the lab tests. There.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that because I just had a brand shoot last week and I printed off test results. Of course, I took the client names off, but I got shoots like from overhead looking at test results. But that is what I did on the last Facebook Live with this group is I actually did a slideshow of common things that I see coming back in clients' reports. And so people are so interested in that. And
Yeah, they're like,
even
oh my gosh, is this the whole thing in my fertility journey? Like nobody has looked at this before. Is this unlocking
yes.
something new?
And actually, there's two couples I'm working with right now. One of them, like, she got her test results back for the HTMA and she's in a four lows pattern, meaning her body's just very depleted. And she's like, I feel like I don't even have a right to try to have a baby right now. And I'm like, I mean, for me personally, in my fertility group, I'm like, I encourage my clients to take a break for 3 months from trying so that they can heal physically and emotionally and work on their marriage during that time. And I'm like, you're right, you shouldn't. We're going to take a break for a while and get you replenished. But then this other couple that just came to me, what I did for the couple that I messed up on that I just told you about is I actually pulled the test out separately because they've done this test before with another practitioner. And I'm like, I'll do the test with you separately just so you can see how I do it and see what I'm seeing because I have worked with clients who have done this test with another practitioner. And again, like I don't mean to sound prideful when I say that. Every practitioner has their own way of looking at things, but so I pulled that test out separately, and that was like an easy yes for them. And the last clients I did this with, where I showed them the test results first, that it was like a total easy yes for the package because they're like, because I do like a 13 to 15 page report on all the things I'm seeing and go over the patterns with them and then tie it back to fertility or tie it back to hormones or tie it back to whatever you're working with that client on, and it can make your like big offer a very easy yes for them because you're like, here's what I'm seeing, here's what we're going to work on, here's why you might be having issues, and they're like, okay, yes, like
Yeah. Oh, makes so much sense. Show, don't tell. Show, don't
yes.
tell. Show, don't tell whenever possible. Ah, this is so good. Okay, so Becca, where do people find you? I would imagine that people are thinking, I don't work specifically with fertility clients, but I would love to have a trusted resource to send people to. So, how do they do that? Where do they find you? All the things.
Yeah, my website is faithfulfertility.co. I am on Instagram, but I totally copied Andrea and I only have one post there and I'm not on Instagram for my business, so don't find me there. But you can email me at hello@fertility.co if you want to get a hold of me too.
Amazing, amazing. We will have that linked up below in whatever. If you're listening audio, it'll be in the description of the podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, it will be in the description there. Just sincerely, thank you for sharing your experience on the podcast today, because I know that it is so helpful. I always hear responses from these types of interviews. It's like, that was so good. Like, I just needed to hear someone else's story, that I'm on the right path, that it, even if it doesn't feel like it's working right now, that doesn't mean that it isn't working right now, and to normalize the ups and downs that we all have as business owners. But also, I'm feeling compelled to say, like, most people don't have the call to be a business owner. Most people don't have that.
Mhm.
Most people don't have that inner, like, I'm supposed to do this. There's a reason I keep trying. There's a reason I keep showing up. And if you have it, there's a reason. Like, that is something that I think the Lord has you out sharing for a reason. You can have your own beliefs around that, but there is a purpose there, and everybody doesn't have it. So if you do, like, congratulations, and bring it forth and keep going, and all the encouragement.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Andrea.
Yay!